Somewhere in a museum vault right now sits an object that shouldn't exist. An artifact so advanced, so impossibly precise, that even modern engineers struggle to explain how it was made. No tools, no technology, no records. Just silence from the past. Throughout history, we've pulled objects from the earth that challenge everything we think we know about our ancestors. Some are beautiful, some are unsettling. All of them whisper questions we still can't answer. Who made them? Why? And what knowledge died with their creators? Today, we're counting down 10 of the most mysterious artifacts ever discovered. Objects that rewrite history, defy explanation, and remind us that the past refuses to stay buried. Let's begin where mystery meets the sea. Number 10. The Antikythera mechanism. It's 1901. Greek sponge divers caught in a storm take shelter near the small island of Antikythera. 50 meters beneath the surface, in the dim blue haze of the seafloor, they stumble upon a Roman shipwreck. Bronze statues, amphorae, marble columns. The usual treasures of an ancient merchant vessel. And then, something else. A corroded lump of bronze, barely recognizable. Not beautiful, not impressive. Just a misshapen mass of green and brown decay. For decades, it sits in the National Archaeological Museum in Athens, catalogued and forgotten. Just another fragment of antiquity. Then, in 1951, a British science historian named Derek de Solla Price takes a closer look. Through the corrosion, beneath 2,000 years of decay, he sees something impossible. Gears, dozens of them, precisely cut, impossibly intricate. This isn't just an artifact, it's a machine. Modern X-ray imaging and CT scans eventually reveal the truth. The Antikythera mechanism is an ancient Greek computer. Built around 100 BCE, it contains at least 30 bronze gears, possibly as many as 72, designed to track the movements of the sun, moon, and planets with astonishing precision. It predicted eclipses decades in advance. It calculated the Olympic Games. It modeled the irregular orbit of the moon using epicyclic gearing, a mathematical concept that wouldn't appear again in human technology for another 1,500 years. Imagine holding this device in ancient Athens. You're standing in the agora, surrounded by philosophers and merchants. You turn a small bronze crank. Pointers glide across engraved dials, and suddenly, you know when the next eclipse will darken the sky, where Mars will be 6 months from now, how the heavens themselves will move. To the ancients, this must have felt like touching the machinery of the gods. The engineering is so sophisticated that when scientists first studied it in the 1950s, they assumed it had to be medieval. That somehow, impossibly, a Renaissance-era device had fallen into an ancient shipwreck. But carbon dating doesn't lie. Neither does archaeology. This machine is 2,000 years old, built by someone who understood mathematics, astronomy, and precision engineering at a level we thought the ancient world could never reach. And here's what haunts researchers. If the Greeks could build this in 100 BCE, what else could they build? Where are the prototypes? The failed attempts? The instruction manuals? The workshops where these mechanisms were made? We've found exactly one. One mechanism. In all of history. From the entire ancient world. Which means either we've been unbelievably unlucky, or somewhere beneath the Mediterranean, lost to time and tide, lies evidence of a technological sophistication that vanished so completely, we're still struggling to comprehend it. The creator's name? Unknown. Their methods? Gone. Their other works? Lost. All that remains is this single corroded testimony that the ancients knew far more than we ever gave them credit for. Number 9. The Baghdad Battery. In 1936, a German archaeologist named Wilhelm Koenig is cataloguing artifacts at the National Museum of Iraq. It's routine work. Clay jars, tablets, the everyday debris of ancient Mesopotamian life. Then he opens a small box. Inside is a simple clay jar, about 6 inches tall, dating to the Parthian period around 200 BCE. Inside the jar sits a copper cylinder. Inside that cylinder, an iron rod, sealed in place with asphalt. The iron shows clear signs of corrosion from an acidic substance. Koenig freezes. Copper, iron, electrolyte. To a trained eye, this isn't pottery. It's a circuit. And Koenig makes a claim that will define his career and ignite a debate that still hasn't ended. This isn't a jar. It's a battery. The scientific community reacts with immediate disbelief. Ancient people couldn't possibly understand electrochemistry. They had no voltmeters, no wiring systems, no theoretical framework for electricity as a controllable force. It's absurd, critics say. It has to be something else. A scroll case, a ritual container, anything but a power source. Then, in 1940, an engineer named Willard Gray decides to test the idea. He builds an exact replica. Same materials, same dimensions. He fills it with grape juice as the electrolyte and connects a voltmeter. It produces electricity. Half a volt, not much by modern standards, but enough to feel on the tongue. Enough to plate gold onto silver. Enough to perform electroplating, a technique ancient jewelers clearly mastered, even though we assumed they used purely chemical methods. And then the story gets stranger. Because Koenig's jar isn't alone. Dozens of similar vessels have been found across the region. Not one anomaly, not a curiosity, but a pattern, which suggests this wasn't an experiment. It was a system. So what were they for? Some researchers believe they powered electroplating, allowing craftsmen to coat base metals with precious ones. Others think they were used in religious rituals, producing tingling sensations that priests could interpret as divine touch, proof that the gods were present. The most unsettling theory. Medicine. Ancient electrical therapy. Mild current applied to the body to relieve pain, much like modern TENS units. Which would mean the Parthians didn't just stumble onto electricity. They understood what it did. But if this knowledge existed 2,000 years ago, why did it vanish? Why didn't it spread? Why didn't it evolve? Why did humanity have to rediscover electricity from scratch in the 18th century, as if the concept had never existed? Knowledge doesn't usually disappear this completely. But sometimes it does, and history offers a cruel footnote. In 2003, during the invasion of Iraq, the Baghdad National Museum was looted. Thousands of artifacts vanished in the chaos. Several of these batteries disappeared with them. They are still missing, which means some of the best physical evidence we had for ancient electricity now sits in private collections on the black market, or is gone forever. Their secrets went with them. Number 8. The Voynich manuscript. This one is different. Not metal, not stone, just ink and vellum. But what's written on its pages has broken the minds of the world's best cryptographers for over a century. The manuscript enters recorded history in 1912, when a rare book dealer named Wilfrid Voynich purchases it from a Jesuit college in Italy. It's a book of about 240 pages. Every page is filled with strange illustrations. Plants that don't exist. Astronomical charts that make no sense. Diagrams of baths and pipes that lead nowhere. And page after page of flowing text, written in an alphabet no one has ever seen. What's disturbing is how natural it looks. The words repeat. Sentences have structure. Different sections use different dialects. Statistically, it behaves like a real language. It looks like someone is genuinely trying to communicate. But it isn't code. It isn't a known cipher. It isn't any human language we've ever identified. During World War II, America's top codebreakers, the same people who cracked Japanese naval encryption, spent their spare time trying to decode it. They failed. In the 1970s, cryptographers used early computers to analyze it. Nothing. In 2019, machine learning models were unleashed on it. They produced gibberish. The illustrations only deepen the mystery. The plants resemble nothing in nature. Some look vaguely medieval, but warped extra roots, impossible flowers, distorted proportions. One section shows women bathing in green liquid, moving through interconnected pools, pipes snaking between them like an anatomy that belongs to no known machine. Another contains circular charts that might be astronomical, except the constellations are wrong. There's a zodiac-like sequence, but none of the symbols match any known tradition. Carbon dating places the vellum in the early 15th century. The ink matches the period. So we know when it was made. We just don't know who wrote it, what it says, or why it exists. The most common explanation is that it's an elaborate hoax, a Renaissance-era forgery meant to look mysterious and be sold to a wealthy collector as a magical text. But that theory has problems. The linguistic patterns are too consistent, too complex, and what kind of forger spends years creating 240 pages of coherent nonsense, when they could simply copy a real medieval book? Another theory suggests it's a book of herbal medicine, written in a private cipher to protect its knowledge from the Inquisition. Or maybe it isn't human language at all. Maybe it's artificial, a constructed tongue like Esperanto, created by one mind for one purpose we no longer understand. Today, the Voynich manuscript sits in Yale University's Beinecke Rare Book Library. You can see it yourself. Every page is available online in high resolution. You can zoom in, study every curve, trace every line, but you still won't understand a single word, and that might be the point. Some secrets, it seems, prefer to stay secret. Number 7. The Longyu Caves. In 1992, a farmer in Zhejiang province, China, decides to drain a pond. Local legend says these ponds are bottomless. Cursed! That strange sounds echo from their depths. No one really knows what lies beneath them. So the farmer pumps. The water drops, and then something appears. Stone steps, carved stairs descending into darkness. What he's uncovered isn't a natural cave. It's a man-made chamber. And it isn't alone. Over the following months, 24 massive artificial caverns are revealed, all carved directly into solid siltstone. Each one is colossal, nearly 30 meters tall, spanning thousands of square meters. The walls, ceilings, and pillars are covered in uniform chisel marks, every line angled the same way, forming a deliberate, repeating pattern across every surface. The scale is staggering. Researchers estimate that carving just one of these chambers would require removing close to 1 million cubic meters of rock. And yet, here's the mystery. There are no historical records. None. Chinese history is obsessive in its detail. Tax records, weather reports, poetry contests, court gossip. But these caves, not a single mention. Inside, there are no inscriptions, no murals, no tools, no pottery shards, nothing. How do you remove 1 million cubic meters of stone and leave no trace? Where did it all go? It would fill hundreds of thousands of carts. You'd need armies of workers for decades, and yet history is silent. The engineering is precise. The pillars are positioned perfectly to support the ceiling. The chambers ventilate naturally. The drainage systems still work after 2,000 years. Whoever built this understood structure. Some believe the caves were an imperial project, underground palaces, storage vaults, or military shelters. But why build 24? And why erase them? Others suggest they were quarries. But quarries don't have decorative carving patterns. They don't follow architectural symmetry. They don't feel intentional. The most intriguing theory links them to ancient Taoist beliefs, sacred underground spaces, portals between the human world and the realm of immortals. But if that's true, why abandon them? Why let memory rot so completely that even local tradition turned them into cursed, bottomless ponds? Today, you can walk through the Longyu Caves. You can stand beneath ceilings carved by unknown hands. Run your fingers across those uniform chisel marks. Feel cool air rising from the depths. But you won't find answers. Only emptiness and echoes, and the unsettling weight of knowing that someone once commanded the construction of something vast, something that required immense organization and power, and then erased every trace of who they were and why they did it. Number 6. The Phaistos disk. In 1908, Italian archaeologist Luigi Pernier is excavating the Minoan palace of Phaistos on the island of Crete. Buried in the ruins, he uncovers a small clay disc about 6 inches across. Both sides are covered in stamped symbols, arranged in a spiral that winds from the outer edge toward the center. It doesn't look carved. It looks printed. 241 symbols, pressed into the clay using individual stamps, which means someone, nearly 4,000 years ago, created a full set of reusable dies for writing. This is around 1700 BCE, more than 3 millennia before Gutenberg. Someone on Crete had invented movable type. But that's only the beginning of the mystery. There are 45 distinct symbols. Some resemble people. Others look like tools, animals, plants, a helmeted head, a ship, a hide, a flower, yet they don't match any known Minoan script. We can read Linear B. We partially understand Linear A, but the Phaistos disk belongs to neither. It is its own language, and we've never found another example. Not on pottery. Not on tablets. Not on walls. Just this one disk. Some scholars believe it's a hymn or prayer, perhaps dedicated to a Minoan goddess. Others think it's a calendar, an astronomical record, even a board game, with symbols representing rules or moves. The most controversial theory, that it's a fake, that Pernier, under pressure to make a major discovery, created an elaborate hoax. But tests on the clay prove it's ancient, and a hoax would have been simpler, safer, more believable. Why invent a language no one can verify? No, the disk is real. It's just alone, which means either we've been catastrophically unlucky and every other example was lost, or this object was never meant to be part of a system. Maybe it was a one-time message, a diplomatic gift, a sacred object, something meant to exist only once. Dozens of scholars have proposed translations, all of them different, none of them proven. Today, the disk rests in the Heraklion Archaeological Museum in Crete. You can stand before it, study every symbol, follow the spiral with your eyes, and join more than a century of scholars who have tried and failed to hear the voice pressed into the clay. Number 5. The Nazca Lines. In the early 1920s, commercial pilots begin flying over southern Peru. From the air, they notice something impossible etched into the desert below. Lines. Perfectly straight lines stretching for miles. Geometric shapes and enormous figures of animals. A spider nearly 50 meters wide. A hummingbird with a wingspan longer than a football field. A monkey with a spiraling tail. These aren't paintings. They're geoglyphs, created by scraping away the dark stones of the desert floor to reveal the lighter soil beneath. Some lines are only a foot wide. Others are nearly 30 meters across. From the ground, they look like meaningless paths. From the sky, they become images. Thousands of lines crisscross the Nazca Desert, covering almost 200 square miles. The Nazca people created them between 500 BCE and 500 CE. But here's the problem. They couldn't properly see them. There are no mountains tall enough in the region to view the figures in their entirety. The Nazca had no balloons, no aircraft, no way to rise above their own work. They made massive artworks meant to be seen from the sky. Only the gods could appreciate them. Or could they? Some researchers believe the lines functioned as astronomical markers, tracking solstices and equinoxes for agriculture. Computer analysis shows that certain lines align with celestial events. Others think they were ceremonial pathways, routes for ritual processions honoring mountain and water deities. The Nazca lived in one of the driest places on Earth. Rain meant survival. Then there's the theory that refuses to die, that they were landing strips for ancient visitors from the sky. Archaeologists reject this outright, but it persists because, from above, the desert really does resemble an airport. What we do know is this. Creating these lines required extraordinary organization. Teams of people, working for generations, removing stones by hand, following designs they could never fully see, trusting that the larger pattern would emerge. Modern attempts to recreate even small sections require GPS, surveying equipment, and weeks of labor. The Nazca did it with stakes, rope, and vision. The lines have survived for 2,000 years because this desert is one of the driest places on Earth. Almost no rain, almost no wind. They've waited. But they are fragile. In 2014, activists walked across the hummingbird during a protest, leaving footprints that may take decades to fade. Roads, mining, and development now threaten others. Images that took generations to create could vanish in a single lifetime, and we still don't know why they were made. We only know that an ancient people felt compelled to speak to the sky, to carve messages so vast, so deliberate, that perhaps something above them would finally notice. Number 4. The Crystal Skulls. In the British Museum, there sits a skull carved from solid quartz, life-sized, anatomically precise, polished to a glass-like finish. No visible tool marks. No obvious method of construction. For decades, it was believed to be a sacred artifact of the Aztecs or Mixtecs, ancient, ritualistic, a relic of a lost civilization. Then, in 2008, scientists examined it under an electron microscope. They found rotary tool marks. The skull had been carved using modern lapidary wheels technology that did not exist in pre-Columbian America. It was a fake, made in Germany in the late 1800s, likely in Ida Oberstein, a town famous for gemstone carving. Quietly, the museum updated its label. Other institutions followed. The crystal skulls, once paraded as ancient enigmas, were revealed as Victorian-era creations sold to collectors who wanted to believe in ancient magic. Case closed. Or so it seemed. Because one skull doesn't fit. The Mitchell Hedges skull. According to legend, in 1924, explorer F.A. Mitchell Hedges and his adopted daughter Anna discovered it among the ruins of Lubantun, a Maya site in Belize. This skull is different. Its jaw is detachable. Its internal structure refracts light in strange ways. Under magnification, it shows no clear tool marks. Anna Mitchell Hedges claimed it possessed power, that staring into it produced visions, that it radiated warmth, that priests once used it for healing and prophecy. In 1970, Hewlett-Packard examined the skull. Their conclusion was unsettling. The quartz crystal is aligned in a way that should cause it to shatter during carving. Modern tools would leave marks, and yet the skull exists. But the story begins to unravel. There is no record of its discovery in expedition notes. It doesn't appear in photographs from the dig, and Mitchell Hedges himself was known for embellishment. Most evidence suggests the skull was purchased at auction in London in 1943. The Maya discovery story came later, and yet no one has conclusively proven when or where it was made. Unlike the British Museum skull, no modern tool marks have been definitively identified. Its carving method remains unexplained, so we're left with this. Most crystal skulls are frauds. Proven. Documented. But one of them, just one, exists in a grey zone between ancient mystery and modern deception. And maybe that's fitting, because mysteries don't always resolve cleanly. Sometimes they simply shrink and become no less strange. Number 3. The Saqqara bird. In 1898, during excavations in the ancient necropolis of Saqqara, Egypt, archaeologists opened the tomb of Padi Ayman. Inside, among the expected relics, they find something small and unremarkable, a wooden object, 6 inches long, carved from sycamore, with wings, a body, and a vertical tail. It's catalogued simply as a wooden bird model and placed in storage at the Cairo Museum, and there it stays for 70 years. Then, in 1969, an Egyptologist named Khalil Messiha is sorting through the collection when he picks it up, and something feels wrong. This isn't a bird. The proportions are off. The wings are perfectly horizontal, The tail is vertical, not flat like a bird's. To Messiha, who had experience with aviation, the shape is immediately familiar. This isn't a figurine, it's an airframe, a glider. He builds a scaled-up replica. With only minor adjustments, it flies. Stable, predictable, efficient. Suddenly, a radical idea takes shape. What if the ancient Egyptians understood aerodynamics? What if this object isn't symbolic at all? What if it's functional? Skeptics push back immediately. There's no rudder, no flaps, no propulsion system. It's a toy, they argue. A child's plaything, stylized to resemble a bird. But that raises another question. Why these proportions? Why the horizontal stabilizer? Why the precise wing geometry? Why not make it look like an actual bird? And if the Egyptians truly grasped the principles of flight, why is this the only trace? No murals of gliders in tombs. No texts describing experiments. No other models. Just this one object, forgotten in a drawer for most of a century. One theory suggests it was symbolic and artistic representation of the Ba, the soul, which Egyptians believed could fly freely after death. The aerodynamic qualities in this view are accidental. Another proposes it was a weather vane meant to spin in the wind. But a small group of researchers remains unconvinced. They point to similar forms found in South America, to modern experiments showing how easily such gliders can be made from ancient materials, to a simple truth. Play often comes before invention. Maybe a child threw this into the wind. Maybe someone noticed. Maybe, for a moment, in ancient Egypt, a human being left the ground, and the knowledge died with them. Today, the Saqqara bird is displayed in the Cairo Museum, in a section labelled Ancient Egyptian Aviation, a title that still sparks debate. You can see it yourself. 6 inches of wood. It might be a bird. It might be a toy. It might be proof that our ancestors touched the sky long before we ever imagined, or it might be all three at once. Number 2. The Piri Reis map. In 1929, scholars are cataloguing the library of Topkapi Palace in Istanbul when they uncover a parchment made of gazelle skin tucked between forgotten manuscripts. It's a map, drawn in 1513 by Ottoman Admiral Piri Reis. It shows the Atlantic Ocean, the western coast of Africa, the eastern edge of South America, and then something impossible: Antarctica. Here's the problem. Antarctica wouldn't be officially discovered until 1820, more than 300 years after this map was drawn. Yet the Piri Reis map appears to show the northern coastline of Antarctica, Queen Maud Land, with surprising accuracy. Not the ice, but the land beneath it. Bays, contours, mountain shapes. Features that wouldn't be properly charted until the 1950s, using seismic surveys beneath the ice. Piri Reis left notes on the map explaining his sources. He didn't invent it. He compiled it from roughly 20 older charts, including some dating back to the time of Alexander the Great, and one said to have belonged to Christopher Columbus. Which raises a dangerous question. Did ancient maps contain knowledge of Antarctica? Knowledge that shouldn't exist? Unless Antarctica was once ice-free. Mainstream geology says the continent has been frozen for millions of years long before humans ever walked the Earth. But a fringe theory suggests otherwise, that the Antarctic ice sheet formed much more recently, that an advanced ancient civilization once mapped its coasts before they vanished beneath ice. Mainstream scholars reject this. They point out distortions in the map. They argue the Antarctica shape may simply be a misdrawn South America. They remind us that Renaissance cartographers often imagined a southern continent to balance the world. Even Piri Reis himself wrote that parts of the map were based on sailors' tales. Speculation, not surveying. And yet, the resemblance remains. The controversy persists. And the question refuses to die. How did Renaissance cartographers working from ancient sources create something that even resembles a continent unknown to their world? Coincidence? Probably. Ancient maps of a pre-ice Antarctica. Almost certainly not. But it's that almost that keeps the mystery alive, because sometimes even the most reasonable explanation leaves a small crack, and wonder slips through. Number 1. The London Hammer. In 1936, Max and Emma Hahn are walking near London, Texas, when they notice a piece of wood protruding from a rock. They break it open. Inside, embedded in solid limestone, is an iron hammer. The wooden handle is partially fossilized. The iron head shows unusual purity and resistance to corrosion, and the rock around it appears ancient, very ancient. The limestone is dated to the Cretaceous period, over 100 million years old, which would mean this hammer was forged long before humans existed. Believers call it proof of time travelers, or lost civilizations, or that modern geology is fundamentally wrong about Earth's history. It's an irresistible idea, but then reality steps in. Geologists explain that limestone can form rapidly around objects through a process called concretion. Minerals in water accumulate around an item, creating a rock-like shell in decades or centuries, not millions of years. The hammer is almost certainly from the late 1800s, dropped by a miner or settler, slowly encased by mineral deposits until it looked impossibly ancient. A trick of time, a geological illusion. But here's where the story becomes frustrating. The hammer is now housed in the Creation Evidence Museum in Texas. Its owners refuse independent testing. No carbon dating, no metallurgical analysis, no peer review. Which means this mystery could be solved. We have the technology, we have the methods. We could know, but as long as testing is denied, the hammer remains suspended in ambiguity. Evidence of nothing, or proof of everything, depending on what you want to believe. And maybe that's the real lesson. Some mysteries endure not because they can't be solved, but because someone prefers them unsolved. The London Hammer draws a line between mystery and mysticism, between genuine unknown and deliberate obscurity. Real mysteries invite investigation. False ones fear it. 10 artifacts, 10 questions. Some of these may be solved. The Voynich manuscript might be decoded tomorrow. The Longyou caves could reveal inscriptions we missed. The Nazca lines may finally surrender their purpose. Others may remain forever silent, not because we lack intelligence, but because the knowledge died with those who created it. What strikes me most about these objects is not what they tell us about the past, but what they reveal about us. We are a species that builds, that invents, that reaches forward, and then, sometimes, we forget. Knowledge is fragile. Civilizations rise and fall. Technologies are born and vanish, and sometimes all that remains is a corroded gear, a clay jar, a wooden bird, whispering that we once knew more, that we calculated the stars, that we touched the sky, that we wrote in languages now silent. These artifacts carry a warning. Preserve what you know, record it, teach it, so that one day our descendants don't stand in a museum, staring at our remains, wondering how we did it. When I stand before objects like the Antikythera mechanism or the Phaistos disc, I feel something unexpected. Not just curiosity about the past, but responsibility for the future. What will we leave behind? What mysteries will we become? Will they understand us any better than we understand the ancients? Or will they stand where we stood, asking the same questions, touching the same silence? If there's another lost artifact, another unsolved mystery, or another forgotten chapter of the past you'd like me to explore, let me know in the comments. The past is vast, and we've barely begun. I'm Theo, telling history one mystery at a time, and together we keep the questions alive. See you in the next discovery.
Thank you all so much for everything. Goodbye.